Okay. Hey guys, what's going on? John here from What's Spinning, here tonight to chat about this new Black Mountain album, Destroyer. Black Mountain are a Vancouver psychedelic rock band headed by Stephen McBean. I started catching wind about these guys around the times of their self-titled album and their sequel in the future. And at the time, to me, I certainly got the hype, but it wasn't really my thing. Black Mountain obviously had a sound, even though it was a sound that a lot of other bands were going for at the time. That very throwback psychedelic rock sound with big guitars, some stoner rock thrown in, blends of indie and alternative as well. But around the time of 2010's Wilderness Heart, I certainly really caught on with these guys in a big way. Everything about this album to me just seemed cranked up. The riffs were heavier, the production was gruffer, the vocals were soaring as well. Like, everything about this album is so over the top, but I couldn't help but get caught up in it. And their last album, 4, may be their best album overall. It was just as catchy and well written and over the top, but it also brought in elements of space rock, and it showed them return to stoner rock as well. It was a wonderfully produced album, and it was performed even better. Now, it's been a while since we've heard from Black Mountain. They're back with Destroyer, and the singles leading up to this album have been really solid, and I've been really excited to chat about this. Let's do it. This album starts with Future Shade, and honestly, this is like the best track here. Right off the bat, this freaking rips. I love just how muscular this track sounds, and the solo that this track has is gigantic. The synths are also at their heaviest that they've ever been with the band. It's something that they've toyed with for years, but it's never been this prominent, and honestly, here it sounds great. It's just a soaring, genuinely epic start to this album, and Black Mountain just sound great. I mean, for the most part, on this album, Black Mountain kind of seemed where they left off, and that's just a seriously classy throwback rock sound. Horns Are Rising, on the other hand, has a much slower sound to it, much grittier, even like bringing in elements of sludge metal. The riffs here just continue to be so powerful, towering over everything in sight. Like, it's just so refreshing to hear a band go for such an unadulterated classic metal sound. And the gigantic synths on this track continue to give this a very progressive sound to it. Now, the vocals on this track are honestly going to have some people on the fence. Like, this is almost reminiscent of like Black Moth Super Rainbow and Tobacco solo stuff. But at least on this track, I feel like it gives this almost like an apocalyptic feel and that I genuinely just can't help but eat up. Not to mention, I love just how genuinely dreary this track comes off. And the second half of this track slows down even to a ballad, and honestly, that comes off just as well. On the other hand, Boogie Lover later on is a very spacey tune that certainly has a lot of boogie to it. I love the very seductive vocals here, like Rachel Fannin here absolutely nails it. This honestly ends up being one of the most muscular and truly groovy tracks here. Like, if you're here for the classic rock vibes, you're gonna want to hear this. There's tons of great feedback coming through on the production, and Black Mountain just builds so much out of so little on this track. It's really something special. Not to mention, there is a legitimate sexiness on this track that I feel like the band pulls off so well. A+. And License to Drive is interesting as well, especially because this one starts off pretty slow, which is something that the band has had a lot of issues with in the past. But here, the band starts off slow and builds pretty nicely, actually. Like, honestly, this is just a brooding, dark intro that I really like a lot. But it takes off in a huge way, and when it does, it just gets genuinely intense really quickly. The pounding drums are such a great addition, and the synths have not been this out of control on this entire album. Honestly, I can't think of a single time that Black Mountain have ever played with more aggression than they are right here. It's a wild track, and it doesn't give up until it's over, and Black Mountain just really do well with all of it. Now, Black Mountain end up taking a lot of risks here as well, and to be honest, a lot come off very good, and also some come off really awkward, and just, we're in this weird state with Black Mountain right now where they're constantly evolving, I feel like, for better or for worse. Take, for example, Closer to the Edge. Like, I genuinely love the spacey synths and the mysterious atmosphere. It's freaking cool. But despite having some great ideas, it's the shortest track here, and it just ends up being incredibly one-dimensional. Thankfully, though, High Rise wakes me up in a big way. This is one of the most anthemic tracks of the bunch. It's got big synths, big riffs, and big vocals. But while this track might not be the most upbeat here, it shows Black Mountain playing with an urgency that I've really never heard before. Not to mention the heavy grooves and great pacing here makes for one of the most hypnotizing tracks of the bunch. Like, really, it ends up getting pretty raucous by the end of it. Even if Black Mountain don't have the most original sound, hell yes do they ever pull it off. Pretty Little Lazies demands a whole lot of patience. It's the most spacious track of the bunch, and it's certainly the airiest as well. But it picks up nicely into this sort of acoustic, gruff jam. And honestly, I'm very on the fence with it. I think it's very different for Black Mountain. Like, there's a lot of really cool little details here. Like the weird samples and the strings that are floating through the background. Those are very interesting. Even the very bluesy performances here, like that's money. Not to mention, when this track really takes off in the second half, and I do mean takes off, they win me over completely with it. It's just a lot, and I mean like a lot to take in, especially when that folk rock tune sort of makes its way back in for the final leg. Like, it's a track that I have a lot of weird feelings about, just be patient with it. And FD72 ends this album off, and to be honest, it's odd, like really, really odd, and I think it's the worst track here. It's a slow-paced tune and easily the most synthetic track here. Now, I don't necessarily have an issue with them going for a very slow-paced, dark, brooding finale. I think that's a cool idea. But this just isn't the track that I wanted to hear them come off with. The sci-fi feel is certainly interesting, and this track has a strange drama to it that I actually really think is cool. But moments like this, to me, just come off like too much of a stretch and make me pine for the muscular guitar anthems that we were getting in the first leg of this album. So for the most part, this reminds me very much so of the last two albums from Black Mountain. I'm not going to sit here and say that they're doing the most progressive, forward-thinking, or exciting things in psychedelic rock right now. But if you're into big riffs, big vocals, big choruses, this is a band that you want to hear. They don't have the most unique sound, but almost always they play it safe and they make a very decent psychedelic rock record out of it. My only issue is they seem to be constantly evolving for some reason, and I kind of just wish that they would take the sound that they have and build on it, because when they do, that's when things get special. I'm feeling like a strong 7 for now, but let me know what you guys think of this album down below. If you liked the video, be sure to give us a like, give us a subscribe, and let me know down below what you would like for me to chat about in the future. And until next time, have a good day, guys.